We're leaving Iowa Hill. Tammy said she was a little creeped out there. I mean, it is a place where a lot of people have died, and some people say that it's a cursed town with all the fires and tragedies. There's a lot of love stories, tragic love stories, strange deaths, just a lot of accidents. The cemetery was pretty creepy too. This is supposed to be the steepest and most narrow road in California. Does it look narrow to you or steep? It looks like a normal road to me. It's smooth. The car rolls fine. I'm trying to get to Mineral Bar. It's an old gold mining camp that's been turned into a campground. There's a suspension bridge. It's built. That one was built in 1928 to replace the older one, and this one had become in disrepair. So the forestry had made repairs, and now it's a walking bridge. I just want to take a walk across it before I go home, and I have just enough time. Maybe I can get some night photos, some evening photos of the canyon. Problem is, it's smoky, so it's, as you can see, it's getting very dark. You can almost picture Bigfoot running across the road. But we had played some football at the park, ate a few snacks, a little lunch or dinner, call it whatever, and we walked downtown. And I mean, people don't seem too unfriendly, but then again, it seems like everybody kind of minds their own. They just sit on their porches and look at you, keep an eye, make sure you're not like crossing their property line. There's a lot of areas. There's a couple roads I'd love to explore, but every time I go down a road, it's a residence. And as some of you know, you go down a residence, Farmer John might come out of his house with a shotgun and be like, "What are you doing on my property?" So I tried to stay off the side roads. I went down a few, and everyone was just a no-go. And I looked down about 4 or 5 roads. There's a Camp Independence, and I didn't have time to take Independence Road, but there's supposed to be also a camp back there. There was at least 12 camps in 4 major towns: Dutch Flat, Last Chance, Deadwood, Michigan Bluff, and you have Colfax at the bottom of the mountains here. And this town counted on those towns for supplies, while those towns also counted on these towns for supplies, and vice versa. And they each had mills, and each town offered a little something. So the mines and a lot of the people who had claims in various towns also had claims in Iowa Hill. And they had immigrant pioneer trails like the Stevens Trail that connected to some of the camps. And Mineral Bar is just a camp, and its most prominent feature is the bridge, which we're going to check out real quick before we go home. And I feel the bridge is necessary. It's important because how else did you cross the American River? Sure, when it was lower, you could take a horse carriage across, but you also ran a lot of risks. Like for example, could tip over. You could lose your supplies, go down the rapids like hell on wheels. So the bridge was built to cross this wagon trail, which we're riding on now, that's paved. But this road could be haunted. A lot of deaths along this road, a lot of accidents, like wagons breaking and people being crushed by the weight, horse accidents, falling to their death, because we have cliffs nearby. There are cliffs around here. We're at the Foresthill Divide, and that's the Grand Canyon of the Sierras we're driving along. However, this road, people say this road's bad or this road's treacherous. This is nothing. I drive this all day long when I go out adventuring in Nevada. We go along cliffs and ghost towns, and those roads are bad. There's erosion and everything. This is a paved road, and it's not even that steep. So if you want to, keep in mind, if you take your family out here, it's doable. All you need is a car. You don't need a truck. You don't need 4-wheel drive. Don't come here in the winter when there's ice and snow, but come up here. Enjoy the cemeteries. Those are the best relics of the town besides the vault and the old fire hall. Or if you want to call it a fire hall, it's more like a fire wagon barn. But it's not extensive like you'd think. The main cream of the crop is what I do with my recorder. I had to get my recorder, ladies and gentlemen. And I couldn't find it. It fell between the seat. I'm like, what the hell? Because I know I didn't sit it down anywhere. But my pockets are full. I put about 10 pieces of equipment, including measuring tape for Bigfoot tracks. So I don't really, everything gets discombobulated. Papers, this, that. But we're back on the road. You can see how dark it's getting. We'll be in the American River Canyon in about 7 minutes. And just have enough time to get a few photos. And that's it. It gets dark early out here, and with the fire and the clouds, and not the clouds, but the clouds of smoke, makes things a lot worse. Now the road narrows here, but it's not too bad. Most people don't come up here at night. There's a lot of deer. That's another thing. If you decide to come up here, there are bear and deer. We didn't see a bear, but we had the report of a bear, and that's, like I said, it's probably displaced because of the smoke. The fire displaces these animals. They start migrating to another area to get away from the smoke, and to find a bear during the day like that lumbering around near us, it doesn't happen too often. And of course in the evening, this is when the deer come out, early morning in the evening, so you got to watch the eyes because they can come running down the hillside and across. But I don't see any animals yet, but we'll see. This is not a very treacherous road, but I highly recommend if you come out here to go to Big Tree Grove, do it. It's one of the most beautiful forests I've ever hiked in. It's so many types of foliage and plant life. I've seen a few butterflies. It's almost fall, so butterflies and flowers are tapering off. It's just beautiful country down in here. And not just beautiful country, but the big trees, and you combine that with a nice trip to Iowa Hill, its cemeteries that are part of the living ghost town. Look at that. Beautiful. Wow. All that smoke. It looks like fog. Looks like we're in Jamaica or something. We're not. We are in the middle of a firestorm, and it could reach here in a week. Give it a week. It could spread. It could cross the highway. You just don't know. With the winds, everything's so unpredictable when it comes to Mother Nature. But this is my last film, and we're going to Mineral Bar, and then we'll head to Colfax, jump on the thruway, and head back to Tahoe home. Steep? It's a little steep, but it's not straight up and down like some of the roads I took in the Pine Nuts along cliffs. Those are steep and straight up and down almost. Holy hell. But look at this hairpin turn. You gotta take it slow. That's the American River Canyon down in here. You have the North Fork and the South Fork. This is the North Fork, which creates the Foresthill Divide. It separates the Sierras north and south. It divides them. It doesn't necessarily separate it, because when the river is low, very low, what happens is everything connects. It just looks like mountains one after another. But with the river separating it in the canyon, you can see the divide clearly on a day without the smoke and the fire and the brimstone. Iowa Hill is a little disappointing. It's not as extensive as I thought. There's really nothing remaining. No wagons. You think during the fire some of the old iron stoves and remnants would have survived, but there's nothing. There's one iron remnant, a couple mine carts, the vault, but everything else burned down, and I'm very sad by it. That's why the cemeteries, they survived the fire. So the cemeteries are the most worthy thing to do in Iowa Hill or Iowa City, in my opinion. But I actually like these roads. I find them very cozy, nestled in the forest, great views, quiet, dark. You can have a good chance of getting Bigfoot on film, or wildlife, because it's so remote back in here and quiet. But there are some amazing stories. I had gotten a pamphlet at the cemetery and I kept it. I'm going to try to make copies and put it on my site. That way people can read the pamphlet about each of the burials. A lot of they talk about the notable burials, and they all have a tragic tale of death. Not all of them, but about 90% of them died before their time. So you can imagine that it probably is haunted to a degree. I'm sure some of them spirits are not happy they passed on or died up on Iowa Hill and never really lived out their life. It's an old cemetery, Gold Rush Cemetery, early 1850s, a Catholic cemetery. I was reading, same thing, 1859, little boy, and then his sister died a month or two later. And they're buried there. But the Catholic cemetery is bad. There's about 20 unmarked graves, just piles of stones, all displaced. I think if they would have built a more stable fire department up here, I think that they would have had it. That this would have prevented these fires. When a fire burns 300 structures, and there's 10,000 people living there. They become displaced, they leave the town. The mines were never exhausted. There's new hydraulic mining and new mining operations nearby, federal mining, and I'm telling you, they're still pulling gold out of here, and a lot of it. And if you go to Mineral Bar, you can metal detect, you can gold pan, and they're still pulling gold out of there. People go there all the time to pull gold out. I don't have time to look for gold, but I'll tell you what, maybe I'll come back sometime and just spend the day just gold panning. Who knows? Just give me something to do. We're making our descent. I don't know what elevation we are, but we probably got a few hundred feet till we get to the bottom of the canyon almost. And that's where the bridge is. It's not the worst road. Yeah, it's a little narrow. But going downhill, you don't have to gas it or anything. You just go downhill. Let gravity take you down to the bottom. Just don't go off the cliff. We're almost at the bottom of the canyon. There's the river. I just seen it. We're almost done. I see the bridge up ahead too, I believe, through the trees. This is the heart of Bigfoot country along the American River. Many towns and mines were built. Here's Mineral Bar right here. The campground also. I'm gonna park here. We can just walk across the bridge before it gets dark, and I won't be here for more than a few minutes. Last stop, Mineral Bar. People camp here just to mine along the river for its placer gold. This bridge was built in 1928. And then became unstable, so they decided no more, you could walk across it, and they fixed it up and strengthened it, but no more vehicle. This is the North Fork of the American River, but they decided to build the new bridge, which is to the left, and this made this a walking footbridge. And so what we'll do, we'll cross it, and then I want to stand on the bridge and have someone take it across. But you'll see, folks, it's really pretty on this bridge. You can get a good view of the river, the mountains, and the canyon. Mineral Bar was just another settlement right below Iowa Hill. There's about 5-6 different bars: Italian Bar, Mineral Bar, and Camp Independence. Look how low the river is. You could not really swim, but you could definitely come down here and wade in the water, trout fish. Wow, look how low the American River is. This is ridiculous. You could gold pan in here. It's so shallow, but it's safe, son. It's a grape. Here's a new bridge. This one's from 1928, but it's been repaired multiple times. This bridge was necessary. They built multiple bridges across the American River to get up in the higher Sierras so that they could mine. However, most of the camps were buried. Most of the camps, like this one, were right on the shores of the American River. Because if the rapids came by and used hydraulic mining or gold pans, you could scoop the gold right up. We're at the bottom of the canyon, but a lot of these camps start from the bottom to the top, and for every few miles there's a camp that runs along it. It's pretty cool. Piece of history right here. Oh man, I love this bridge. Walked across it. Wish I had more time to do some fishing and gold panning. Tell you what, the sun goes down real early up in here. But we've done well. Visited Big Grove, Sequoia Forest, and then we visited the ghost town of Iowa City, Iowa Hill. They're both the same. Just changed names when they diminished in size. And then we're visiting Mineral Bar, an old mining campsite. It started here in the 1850s, and then they worked their way up into the higher Sierras as they built bridges and had traversed across the river to discover more gold higher up. Placer gold runs from the creeks and then it pours down in the American River. It's a very wealthy industry back in the 1800s. A lot of hard work and a lot of dangers involved. But this is what it's about. This is gold country.